You ever notice how life has this way of breaking us in places we didn't even know could crack? It's like one moment everything feels stable, and then out of nowhere something happens that shakes the ground beneath you. The relationship ends. The opportunity slips away. The people you trusted walk away without warning. Suddenly, you're left staring at the pieces of what used to be you, wondering how something that once felt so whole could now feel so undone. But what I've come to learn is this: those fragments don't define you, they prepare you. See, sometimes the breaking isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the painful classroom where strength is taught, where grace gets real, and where purpose is born out of ashes. Life doesn't just break you to leave you scattered. It breaks you to shape you into something more powerful, more compassionate, more rooted in truth. When everything fell apart for me, I thought it was over. I thought I was done. I couldn't see past the disappointment, the shame, or the loneliness that came with losing what I thought I couldn't live without. But here's the secret life doesn't tell you up front. The breaking isn't the end. It's an invitation. It's the moment where love starts whispering, "You're still becoming." It's where faith quietly says, "I know you don't see it yet, but there's more." Sometimes the fragments are the evidence that something false had to fall apart so the truth could finally stand on its own. The version of you that depended on validation, the one that believed love had to hurt to be real, the one that thought survival meant silence, that version couldn't carry the weight of who you were created to be. So life broke it down, not to destroy you, but to free you. You may not see it when you're standing in the ruins, but the breaking is not betrayal. It's transformation. The pieces you're left holding are not trash. They're tools. Every shard has a story. Every scar carries a testimony. You start realizing that the pain that almost took you out is the same pain that pushed you closer to who you really are. And let's be real, healing doesn't happen overnight. It's messy. It's quiet. It's those nights when you're fighting tears and pretending you're fine. It's those mornings when getting out of bed feels like victory, but slowly love begins to show up in the cracks. Not always through people, but sometimes through peace, sometimes through forgiveness, sometimes through the courage to start again. The breaking prepared you to recognize real love, not the kind that performs, but the kind that stays. The kind that holds you together when the world tries to convince you you're too broken to be whole. The kind that doesn't need you to be perfect, just willing. And maybe that's the lesson life was trying to teach all along. That love rebuilds differently. There's a strength that only comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. There's a wisdom that only shows up after the storm has passed. And when you look back, you realize those shattered moments didn't just break you. They revealed you. They peeled back layers of pretending, of people pleasing, of needing approval, and showed you the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. So no, the fragments don't define you. They refine you. Every time you thought you were falling apart, you were really being remade. Every why me moment was shaping a testimony that would one day help someone else say, she made it through. Maybe I can too. Don't be ashamed of what life tried to break. Those pieces tell the story of your becoming. They're proof that even in your weakest moments, something stronger inside of you refused to quit. So hold your head high. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned that perfection was never the goal. Purpose was. And when you finally look at the mosaic of what's left, the pieces love helped you gather, the strength pain taught you to hold, the beauty born from the breaking, you'll realize you didn't lose yourself after all. You just found the version of you that could finally stand without falling apart. Because the truth is, the breaking didn't bury you. It built you. You know, people talk about love like it's soft, like it's this sweet, gentle thing that only shows up in the good moments, when everything's easy and everyone's smiling. But real love isn't just soft. It's strong. It's fierce. It's the kind of force that stands in the middle of the storm and says, I'm not leaving, because love isn't weak. Love is a warrior in disguise. There were times when I thought love meant comfort, that it meant never hurting, never breaking, never being tested. But that's not how love works. Love shows up in the battle, not the fairy tale. It doesn't run when it's hard. It fights for you when you've forgotten how to fight for yourself. It covers you when the world tries to expose your pain. It doesn't need perfection. It needs honesty. The kind of love that rebuilds what life tried to break doesn't just say, I love you. It says, I see you. It looks beyond the surface, beyond the smiles that hide the exhaustion, and touches the places that are still tender from what you survived. And that's what makes it powerful. It's love that knows your cracks and still calls you whole. There's something sacred about being loved in your undone state. When you've lost your shine, when you're questioning your worth, when you feel too damaged to be deserving, that's where the warrior side of love shows up. It doesn't come with flowers and perfection. It comes with truth and grace. It says, I know what happened to you, but I also know what's inside you. Sometimes that kind of love comes from another person. Sometimes it comes from within. Sometimes it's divine. But however it arrives, it never comes to control. It comes to heal. It fights lies with truth. It fights fear with presence. It fights shame with understanding. It rebuilds not by erasing your past, but by helping you see that your story still holds beauty. And maybe that's what love was meant to be all along, a safe place. Not a perfect one. We've been taught to associate love with comfort, but sometimes love will confront you. It will challenge the way you see yourself. It will expose the places you've been hiding behind strength because it wants to heal what you won't face. Real love doesn't let you stay broken. It helps you rebuild, brick by brick, breath by breath. You start realizing that love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision. It's showing up when it would be easier to walk away. It's forgiving when you want to hold a grudge. It's speaking life when everything around you feels dead. Love doesn't make you weak for caring. It makes you brave enough to stay open in a world that teaches you to close off. And let's be honest, being loved after you've been broken is terrifying. You flinch at kindness because it feels unfamiliar. You second guess peace because chaos has been home for so long. But love is patient. It waits for you to stop running. It teaches you how to trust again, slowly, gently, like light seeping through the cracks of a room that's been dark for too long. That's the beauty of love. It rebuilds from the inside out. It doesn't start with fixing your circumstances. It starts with healing your heart. It teaches you that you're not hard to love. You've just been hurt deeply. It whispers that being vulnerable again isn't foolish. It's freedom. Because when love rebuilds you, it doesn't restore you to who you were. It reveals who you were always meant to be. I've learned that love doesn't need to announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up quietly in a friend who checks on you, in a moment of peace after years of chaos, in the strength you didn't know you still had. And before you know it, that love begins to weave itself into the broken spaces, turning wounds into wisdom and pain into power. You see, love's strength isn't in how loud it can shout, but in how deeply it can stay. When everything else fades, love remains. When you fall apart, love holds on. When the pieces don't make sense, love builds a new pattern. That's what makes it a warrior. It doesn't need armor. Its weapon is compassion. It doesn't need to conquer you. It comes to stand beside you. And somewhere in that rebuilding, you start to realize that love never failed you. It just had to reveal itself differently. It wasn't gone when you were broken. It was gathering what life scattered. It wasn't absent in your pain. It was fighting for your restoration behind the scenes. Love has always been working, even when you couldn't feel it. Because the truth is, love doesn't run from broken things. It resurrects them. Healing doesn't start the moment everything around you changes. It starts the moment you finally let love in. And I'm not talking about the easy kind of love, the one that only shows up when you've got it all together. I'm talking about the kind that meets you right in the middle of your mess. The kind that doesn't wait for you to be perfect before it chooses you. The kind that walks into your brokenness and says, I'm not leaving. That's where healing begins, not in pretending you're fine, but in allowing yourself to be seen, flaws and all. For a long time, I thought healing meant hiding. I thought if I kept smiling through the pain and showing strength on the outside, maybe the cracks wouldn't show. But love can't heal what you hide. It can't reach the places you keep locked behind walls of pride, fear, or guilt. And if we're being honest, sometimes it's not even pride, it's protection. You've been hurt before, so you tell yourself it's safer to build walls than to risk being broken again. But what you don't realize is that the same walls keeping pain out are also keeping love from getting in. There's a moment, a quiet, sacred moment, when you stop fighting what hurt you and start surrendering to what can heal you. It's when you decide you're tired of pretending. It's when you whisper to yourself, I don't want to carry this anymore. And that's when love starts working. It doesn't always come in the way you expect. Sometimes it's through forgiveness. Sometimes it's through release. Sometimes it's through someone who sees you clearly when you've forgotten your own reflection. Letting love in means being brave enough to feel again. And that's hard when life has taught you that feeling leads to pain. But numbing yourself doesn't protect you. It just prolongs the ache. Love is not afraid of your pain. It knows how to sit with it. It knows how to take your trembling hands, your shaky trust, your hesitant hope, and still say, we're going to get through this. Love doesn't ask you to rush. It just asks you to open the door. There's something sacred about that moment when you stop running from love and start letting it reach the places that have been starving for it. Because sometimes the very thing you're afraid to let in is the thing that will set you free. You may think you're protecting yourself by staying guarded, but you're actually keeping yourself from the peace that's waiting to find you. Healing isn't about being strong all the time. It's about being honest enough to admit that you can't do it alone. When you let love in, you start to see that healing doesn't erase your story. It redeems it. The parts of you that once felt unworthy start to feel seen. The pain that once felt pointless begins to make sense. You realize that love doesn't come to rewrite your past. It comes to show you how even the painful chapters were shaping your heart for purpose. You stop looking at your scars as signs of shame and start seeing them as proof that you made it through. And it's not always a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's small, quiet shifts. The way you start forgiving yourself for what you didn't know. The way you stop chasing people who keep reminding you of your pain. The way you start believing that you're worthy of peace. Even after everything that broke you, that's love rebuilding you slowly, gently, faithfully. Letting love in doesn't mean everything will be easy. It just means you've chosen not to carry your healing alone. It means you're finally giving permission for grace to do its work. Love will hold you through the unraveling. It will remind you that broken doesn't mean unlovable. It will teach you that you can be both healing and whole at the same time. Some of the hardest battles we face are the ones within our own hearts. The war between wanting to heal and fearing what healing might expose. But love is patient. It waits at the door until you're ready to open it. It never forces itself. It invites, and when you finally let it in, you start to realize that it was never about fixing yourself. It was about allowing something greater to fill the empty places life left behind. You begin to notice how peace replaces panic, how strength grows quietly in the same space where pain once lived. That's what love does. It doesn't rush the process. It redeems it. It rebuilds from the inside out. Turning what once felt like an ending into the beginning of something sacred. And when you finally breathe again, not because the pain is gone, but because love has made peace with it, you'll understand something powerful. Healing was never about forgetting what broke you. It was about remembering who you are when love finally finds you. There's something powerful about standing in the middle of what looks like ruins and realizing it's not the end. It's the beginning of redemption. We spend so much time trying to escape the rubble that we forget it's holy ground. The pieces of what broke you aren't evidence of failure. They're proof that something real survived. You see, redemption doesn't come dressed in perfection. It comes quietly in the middle of the mess, where everything feels lost and love starts whispering, not yet, there's still more to this story. There were seasons where everything I built crumbled, every plan, every dream, Every version of who I thought I was supposed to be came crashing down. And I remember looking at the brokenness and thinking, how could anything good come from this? But that's the mystery of redemption. It hides in the rubble. It waits until the dust settles, until you've exhausted every attempt to fix it yourself, and then it starts building something you never could have imagined. Sometimes God allows what's fake to fall apart, so what's real can finally stand. We hold on so tightly to things that were never meant to last. The relationships we forced, the masks we wore, the plans we made out of fear instead of faith, and when they fall apart, it feels like punishment. But really, it's protection. Sometimes the breaking is mercy in disguise, because if everything had stayed standing, you never would have discovered what was meant to rise. The rubble becomes sacred when you stop seeing it as ruin and start seeing it as revelation. There's clarity that only comes after chaos. There's purpose that only surfaces when the old structure has fallen away. Redemption lies there, in the dirt, in the dust, in the things you thought would destroy you, but somehow didn't. It's not glamorous, it's not quick, but it's real. And when love starts rebuilding, it doesn't need perfection, it just needs a willing heart. I think sometimes we confuse redemption with restoration. We think it means going back to how things were before the breaking. But redemption doesn't take you backward, it takes you deeper. It doesn't rebuild the same walls, it lays a new foundation. The kind of love that redeems doesn't try to make your story pretty. It makes it purposeful. It gives meaning to the moments you thought were meaningless. It turns pain into wisdom, loss into strength, and shame into testimony. You might still be standing in the middle of your own rubble right now. Maybe life knocked the wind out of you. Maybe the people you trusted walked away. Maybe the dream you poured everything into crumbled. And you're wondering how you'll ever rebuild. But what if this isn't the end? What if the breaking was the setup for something greater? What if redemption has already started? You just can't see it yet because it's working beneath the surface. Love has this way of entering your ruins without judgment. It doesn't flinch at your brokenness. It doesn't step around your pain. It sits with you right in it and starts picking up the pieces one by one, not to put them back exactly how they were, but to create something new, something stronger, something truer, something unshakable. Redemption doesn't erase what happened. It transforms what happened. And maybe that's what makes it so beautiful. You'll look back one day and realize the same ground that saw your breaking also witnessed your becoming. The ashes you thought would bury you actually became the soil where something divine took root. Redemption doesn't happen overnight. It unfolds quietly through forgiveness, through surrender, through the small, brave decision to hope again when you have every reason not to. It's easy to praise when everything's standing tall, but it takes faith to worship in the rubble. It takes strength to believe that something good can still come from what's been destroyed. But that's what redemption asks of you. To believe before you can see. To trust that the story isn't over just because it doesn't look the way you planned. Because love specializes in resurrection. It takes what's lifeless and breathes on it again. It takes what the world calls over and says, watch me rebuild. So when you look at the rubble, don't see it as a graveyard. See it as a construction site. Love is still working. Healing is still happening. And one day, you'll look around and realize that the ground that once held your pain now holds your purpose. Because the truth is, redemption doesn't just live in the rubble. It rises from it. There's this moment in every healing journey where you realize that whole doesn't mean who I used to be. It means who I'm becoming. And that's hard to accept. Because a part of you is still mourning the version of yourself that existed before everything fell apart. You miss her confidence, her innocence, her belief if that everything would go as planned. But what love teaches you, what time and grace reveal, is that wholeness doesn't look like before. It looks like becoming something stronger, softer, and more grounded than you ever imagined. When life breaks you, the instinct is to rebuild exactly what was lost. You try to put the pieces back the way they were, forcing old shapes into new spaces, hoping somehow you'll feel like yourself again. But the truth is, You're not supposed to feel like your old self. That version of you was beautiful, but she didn't know what you know now. She hadn't walked through the fire yet. She hadn't learned that peace is more valuable than people pleasing. Or that love without boundaries isn't love at all. The version of you that's emerging after the breaking isn't a replacement, it's a rebirth. The pain that once felt like punishment becomes the very thing that refines you. It strips away everything that was built on fear and leaves behind only what's rooted in truth. That's what becoming is. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's lonely, but it's also holy. It's sacred work to let go of who you were and make room for who you're meant to be. There was a time when I kept praying to go back to before the heartbreak, before the loss, before the disappointment. But then I realized going back would mean giving up everything the pain taught me. It would mean trading wisdom for comfort, strength for familiarity, and purpose for predictability. And I couldn't do that. Because once you've seen what survival looks like, once you've looked in the mirror and seen a fighter staring back at you, you stop craving who you were and start honoring who you're becoming. Wholeness isn't about perfection. It's about integration. It's taking all your pieces, the strong ones, the scared ones, the healing ones, and letting love knit them together into something beautiful. It's realizing that you can still have cracks and still be complete. That your softness doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, and your strength doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you've learned how to stand even while trembling. The truth is, you can't rebuild your life using the same blueprint that broke you. You need a new foundation, and that foundation is built on love, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that's grounded in truth. When you start building from that place, you stop chasing validation and start walking in purpose. You stop trying to be liked and start being at peace. You stop performing and start living. And yes, it's hard. There are days when becoming feels like breaking all over again. Days when the growth feels heavy, when healing feels slow, when you start wondering if you're really making progress at all. But even then, love is working beneath the surface. It's rebuilding the way you see yourself. It's rewiring your heart to recognize peace instead of chaos. It's teaching you that being whole doesn't mean being untouched by pain. It means knowing that pain doesn't get to define you anymore. There's something sacred about the woman who's been through the fire and still chooses softness, who's lost everything familiar but still chooses to love again. Who's learned to stop apologizing for her strength and stop hiding her sensitivity. That kind of woman doesn't need to go back. She's too busy becoming. And every time she takes a step forward, she's telling the world, I survived. I'm still here and I'm not done yet. Wholeness after breaking doesn't come with a big announcement. It comes quietly, like peace returning after chaos. It's in the way you stop reacting to old triggers. The way you start saying no without guilt. The way you choose joy even when everything isn't perfect. That's love rebuilding you from the inside out. And maybe that's the whole point. You weren't meant to return to who you were. You were meant to evolve into who you're called to be. The pain was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. Every scar, every tear, every prayer whispered in the dark was shaping you for this version of yourself, the one who knows that strength and softness can exist in the same heart. So stop trying to resurrect your old self. She served her purpose. Honor her, thank her, but don't go back for her, because the woman you're becoming is everything she hoped you'd have the courage to be, because wholeness was never about returning. It was always about rising. There's a moment in every healing journey when you realize your story isn't just yours anymore. The pain that once silenced you starts to speak, and the scars that once made you hide become a map for someone else still lost. You start to see that all the nights you cried, all the battles you fought in silence, all the moments you thought were wasted, they were shaping something bigger than you. Because when love rebuilds what life tried to break, your story doesn't just end in survival. It becomes someone else's survival guide. There was a time when I didn't want to talk about my broken seasons. I wanted to bury them under smiles and small talk, pretend they never happened. I thought if I didn't speak about the pain, it would lose its power. But I learned that silence doesn't heal, it hides. And hidden wounds don't disappear, they just grow deeper. Love showed me that healing becomes complete when you stop protecting your pain and start allowing it to serve purpose. Because when you open up about where you've been, you give others permission to believe they can make it through too. Your story has power because it's real. It's not filtered. It's not polished. It's not always pretty, but it's truth, and truth carries freedom. Someone is waiting for your honesty, not your perfection. They don't need another highlight reel. They need to see that broken still breathes, that wounded still worships, that healing is possible even after everything falls apart. That's what makes your story sacred. It's not the parts that went right. It's the parts that almost destroyed you but didn't. And I know sometimes it feels risky to share. You worry what people will think. You wonder if they'll understand. But the same vulnerability that feels like weakness becomes the bridge that connects you to others. The moment you say, "Oh, me too," you remind someone they're not alone. That's what love does. It multiplies healing. It takes the pain you once carried in isolation and turns it into a light that helps others find their way out of the dark. You see, healing isn't meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be handed down. Every lesson learned, every tear redeemed, every victory earned, it's a seed. And when you plant that seed in someone else's life through your story, it grows into hope. You may never know whose heart your story will touch. You may never see the lives that shift because you had the courage to speak. But love has a way of multiplying what you give. It doesn't let your pain go to waste. It turns it into purpose. There's a sacred beauty in being both the wounded and the healer, the broken and the builder. Because once you've walked through the fire, you carry a light no one can extinguish. And when you share that light, you remind others that even in their darkest moments, there's still a way forward. Your scars start to speak a language that only those who've been through the fire understand. A language of resilience, of grace, of redemption. And maybe that's the reason you survived what should have taken you out. Maybe love rebuilt you not just so you could stand again, but so you could reach back and help someone else rise. Maybe the strength you found in your pain wasn't just for you. It was for every soul that would one day need proof that it's possible to rebuild. Because sometimes people don't need a sermon. They need a story. They need a living, breathing example of restoration. And that's what you are. Your story won't always be understood by everyone, but it will be needed by someone. And when that someone hears it, it won't just comfort them. It will change them. That's how purpose is born, not from perfection, but from pain that's been transformed by love. And when you realize that your past isn't wasted, that every broken piece was building towards something greater, you start to walk differently. You speak differently. You love differently because you finally understand that healing isn't just about you. It's about legacy. Every time you share your story, you plant a piece of hope in the heart of someone who thought theirs was over. You remind them that broken things can still be beautiful, that endings can become beginnings, and that love really does rebuild what life tried to break. And when they rise, they'll carry that same light forward, and the cycle continues, one heart rebuilding another.